Let's learn how to play Sauros. Sauros is a trick-taking game for 3 to 5 players, but instead of using cards, players will be using these luxurious, thick, clacky tiles. Very satisfying. To begin setup, give each player a playmat, a scoring reference card, dump the victory point tokens within reach of all players, and then dump those thick, chunky boys right in the middle of the table. And when dumping these out on your table, you may want to use a little more caution than I did because they do have a lot of weight to them. And with all of the tiles face down, give them a nice shuffle. Then each player will draw 7 of these tiles and stand them upright, keeping them hidden from the other players at the table. Now, the player who most recently watched a dinosaur television show or movie will be the start player. At the beginning of each round, after players have received their initial 7 tiles, going around the table in turn order, the players may swap up to 2 of them with tiles from the center of the table. And there's a good bit of strategy in this move. For one, you know that the tiles that you're putting into there are probably more likely to become the trump suit. More on that later. But it also kind of helps mitigate the luck of the draw. Sauros is played over a number of rounds equal to the number of players. So in a 3-player game, you play 3 rounds. In a 4-player game, you play 4 rounds. In a 5-player game, you guessed it, you play 5 rounds. And this will give all the players at the table a chance to use each one of the playmats, because at the end of a round, you will score and then pass your playmat to the player to the left. And why do you switch the player mats after every round? That's because they are asymmetrical. So each round, you'll get a new player mat with a different layout that you will have to try to figure out the best way to lay out your tiles that you've acquired during that round. Before we get too far into this teach, let's look at the anatomy of a tile. In the top left-hand corner, we have the tile strength. And in the top right corner, we have the scoring symbol. And in the center of the tile is the dino type, or the suit, if you will. Each round, there will be 7 tricks played. The starting player will take one of the tiles in the center of the table at random and flip it face up. Now, this tile will be known as the trump dino. And it is the trump dino for this hand only. And should T-Rex tiles be drawn when dictating the trump suit, there is no trump suit. And if you're not familiar with trick-taking games, the way this works is each hand there will be a trump suit. And that will be kind of a wild or the strongest suit that will be played that hand. Now that starting player will then play one of the tiles from their hand face up in front of them. Now going around the table, all the other players must play a matching dino type, if they have one, or if they have a T-Rex. You can always play a T-Rex when you have one of them, and there's only 2 of them in the deck, but it automatically wins regardless of what was played. And in the very rare occasion that 2 players should play T-Rex tiles in one hand, it is the first T-Rex tile that wins. The tile that the start player played is known as the lead dino. Now all the other players going around the table have to play a matching colored dino to the lead dino. If they don't have a matching color, they can just throw off and they have no chance of winning. And once all players have played a dino in front of them, the highest value in the lead dino color is the winner. Now, if a player doesn't have a matching tile to the lead dino, but they have one that matches the trump dino of that hand, they can play that instead. And then if any trump dinos are played, the highest value of the trump dinos will win. There are 10 of each dino type. They range from 0 to 9. Yes, most of the time, a higher number dino will win. However, if a 9 and a 0 are both played during the same trick, the 0 actually wins. It beats the 9, which is kind of nice because now it makes these zeros not completely useless. And when you have a 9, you don't always know that you're going to take the trick because there could always be a T-Rex or a 0 lurking in the background. The winner will then take back their tile, and then they will choose one of the other tiles that was played during that hand. So it could be one from another player, or they might choose to take the tile that was flipped up as the trump dino. They will then add those 2 dinos to their playmat. If the winner of that trick took the dino tile that another player played, that player will then receive the trump dino that was flipped up to place on their playmat. So here is a quick example of what a round might look like. Brandon is the starting player. He flips over a 4 green for the trump suit. He leads with a 9 blue. Eric has to follow suit and plays a 6 blue, and Brian has a 4 blue. So since Brandon led with blue as the lead dino, he has the highest of the blues, so he would win the trick. He has to take his tile, and maybe he wants this other egg that was Eric's. So then Eric would then get the trump dino to place on his board, and Brian would put the 4 on his board. But let's say Brandon led that blue and Eric didn't have a blue, but he played a green 7, which is the trump suit. But Brian also didn't have a blue and he played a green trump suit. So now the highest green would be the winner, which would be Brian. So he would take his tile back. Maybe he's a big bone dude. So then he takes the trump suit tile, and then Brandon and Eric respectively will put their tiles on their boards. Now there are some restrictions when placing these on their playmat. You obviously have to play them in an unoccupied square on your playmat. And you can place your first one anywhere you like, but any tiles after that have to be placed orthogonally adjacent to a pre-existing tile. No diagonals here. But in addition to that, there are ways to reserve tiles. These 2 slots here on the side of your playmat allow you to store up to 2 tiles, and that allows you to place them later on. However, you can never add more than 2 tiles onto your placemat at a time. So if you were the winner of a trick and you were receiving 2 tiles that time, you can't place one of the reserved tiles that trick. So you'll have to wait for a trick in which you don't win. Now, if you are unable to place those tiles that you had in reserve by the end of the 7th trick, you will lose 2 points per tile that is over there, at a maximum of 2 tiles. It is possible to have more than 2 tiles left over here in your reserve at the end of the 7th trick. However, you are only penalized for 2 of them, for a maximum of -4 points. Then at the end of the 7th trick, players will tally up their points and collect score markers. Here's an example of a player's playmat at the end of a round. The first thing you score or the matching dinos, consulting the scoring reference card. For instance, this group here of 3 adjacent green dinos would get me 3 points. The next thing you score are the eggs. The player or players with the most eggs score 4 points. Yes, that's right. Ties are friendly here. Next thing you score are the bones. And bones are worth a point per orthogonally adjacent egg. So these 2 bones here are each worth 2 points each. So this tile is worth a total of 4 points. This bone here is worth 2 points because of the 2 adjacent eggs next to it. The next thing you score are teeth, and lone teeth are worth 2 points each. So this tile here is worth 2 points. However, teeth that are touching other teeth are only worth 1 point each. So these 2 teeth up here have adjacent teeth next to them, so they're only worth 1 point each. The next thing you score are footprints. Each pair of footprints score 3 points. And if there's a group of more than 2 footprints or a singular footprint, they score 0. So these 2 footprints here are worth 3 points. This 1 footprint here is worth nothing. And should this footprint have been over here, that would be a group of 3 that would have scored 0 as well. Then the player checks to see if they have any tiles left over in reserve over here, and they will lose 2 points per tile in reserve. I know what you're thinking, but how do you score the T-Rex? Should you place it on your board, it is a wild suit, allowing for some extra scoring opportunities. For instance, I could use the T-Rex as if it were a green dinosaur, so that way I would have a section of 3 green dinosaurs over here, and at the same time, he could also be a purple dinosaur, giving me a section of 4 purple dinosaurs. Then at the end of the round, players remove their tiles, pass their mat to the player to their left, receive the mat from the player to their right, add all those tiles back in the middle, shuffle them up, rinse and repeat until you have played a number of rounds equal to the number of players. And the player with the fewest points becomes the new starting player. And I'm sure your friends will probably point and laugh and go, you get to go first because you have the lowest score. And that is how you play Sauros. I would like to thank Tangerine Games for sponsoring this video, and they also have some other great games, Nestlings and Peaks. I have a review of Peaks. Click here, there, somewhere to check that video out. Thanks again for watching.